Welcome to Real Judaism with Rabbi Ari Klapper. Unfiltered wisdom for Jewish life.
We're going to start here. We're on Pelek Gimel Parakeh. We're talking about the paragraph of Ata Echad. And we started last week talking about Avram Yagel. And we're going to continue with that. It's a bit long here in the Sefer. This idea, Avram Yagel, Yitzchak Yiranein, Yaakov Uvono V'Yanuchu Vo. There's a hierarchy here, right? Obviously, the Avos, each one had their own special uniqueness, and we can say each one on their own has tremendous koyach for the gula, and Chazal brought that. So to say each one is unique and special and has the koyach on their own to bring the geula, it's true. For example, we say in Shemona Esrei every day, we say Magen Avraham. Even though we say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, still we end off with Magen Avraham. We don't end off with Magen Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. And Yaakov Avinu is called the bechir Avos. He is the ultimate, the one who made Klal Yisrael. Avram had Yishmael and Yitzchak had Esau, but Yaakov Avinu had the 12 tribes. Every one of his sons were tzaddikim. So you could say, oh, Yitzchak is Roy on his own. Yitzchak is the best of the Avos. Then again, there's the bechir Avos that Yaakov is called. In fact, we'll see later on. I meant Yaakov. I'm sorry. I meant Yaakov. I apologize. Yitzchak is the Oila Tamima. Yitzchak is on the level of a carbon. And even the Gemara that says that Yitzchak Avinu himself will save Klal Yisrael, the Geula. So each one of the Avos has their specific milas, and those milas carry on into Klal Yisrael. And here we're mentioning all of them, all in a different way. So we started last week discussing Avram Yagel. Why is Avram Yagel? We did last week just to review and to start off this mahalach for this week. Avram Yagel means that Avraham represents the midah of chesed, and the midah of chesed is the midah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu used to create the world, to give everything life, existence, everything. And that's why in Tehillim it says Oilim Chesed Yibaneh, which is that parak of Tehillim is attributed to Avram Avinu. Oilim Chesed Yibaneh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the entire world based on chesed, and that's why Avram Avinu took that midah in order to be like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The ultimate midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is chesed, the constant giver of everything, of all life, of all existence. That is the midah of chesed. And since we get to see more of the Gilui Shechina in Shabbos, so that's why Avram Yagel. Avram is so happy because you get to see more of that midah of chesed on Shabbos. That was by Avram. Now we're going to do Yitzchak. A lot of this we won't do inside because it's a little bit difficult. Some of it I will, and some of it we won't. I'll tell you when we do it inside. First, a little introduction. What is Yitzchak Avinu? So here, Yitzchak Avinu is referred to as the midah of Yira or gevurah. Yira and gevurah have many different facets to them. There's a lot of Kabbalah in this, but we're going to use based on the most basic level as we can. The Pinkus many places uses Kabbalistic terms. Certainly, if you see the end of Sharim B'Tfilah and the Pirkei Siyum, he mentions a lot of inyanim of Kabbalah, and he says there, even though we're not holding in it, but there's some things that we can learn out from it. He himself was holding in it, but he's not necessarily going to write that for the tzibur. Well, some of these ideas are Kabbalistic ideas, but many of them have become more mefursam. They've become more understood and more famous in the recent years. So some of these ideas are not super complicated. The midah Yiras Hashem, Yiras Shamayim, and gevurah is a midah that relates to din. There's chesed and then there's din or gevurah. So those two parts are what hold together the world. The taking the two middos together and using them both is the midah of Tiferes, which is the midah of Yaakov Avinu. But the midah of chesed, which is a constant giving, and the midah of gevurah or din is holding something in. It means limiting. For example, we have a cup. a cup can hold something, let's say water. So how much water can it hold? Only the amount of the cup. So we can say the cup is limiting the amount that you can have. You can only have the amount that the cup can fit. If you have a bigger cup, then obviously you can hold more in the cup. You have a smaller cup, then you can hold less in the cup. So it's very limiting. On the other hand, without the cup, we wouldn't be able to drink the water in the first place. If we wanted to be, and if the cup was so big, it wouldn't be a cup anymore. It would be a bowl. And if it was even bigger than that, it would be a pond. It would be a swimming pool. People are going to really drink from that. Maybe some people, right? So, but you lost the use of it. You lost the ability to use it. So holding something in is useful and makes something usable. You can't use it without being able to hold it in. This is also, by the way, the midah of Zachar and Nekeva as well. The midah of Zachar is giving shefa, and the midah of Nekeva is being able to take that shefa, holding it, and making it real. So a man might be giving, but a woman can only take part of that, but she can take part of that and make that into something, make that thing usable, make that thing real, where many times a man's potential could be endless, but in reality, it can only there's very limited amounts that it actually can turn into something real. So this is what the midah of chesed and gevurah is. So when we're talking about that midah, we're also talking about the midah of yira shamayim, of fear. And this midah of fear also is what created the world. Here he brings it from the Gemara Chagiga that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he created the world, though it was water, there was upper waters and there was lower waters, but all the waters were together. Only in the second day of creation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu split the waters, but it was still weak. Why do the upper waters, the shamayim, there's water up there in shamayim, or eish mayim, a mixture of fire and water. How does that water stay up there? It stays up there because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, stay. It stands there in fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how the Shemayim stays where it is, and it doesn't mix with the earth. And therefore, the idea of fear is what makes things possible. It's what makes things happen. He brings over here as well this idea in the Beis HaMikdash. In the Beis HaMikdash, there were two parts of the avodah. There was the avodah of the Kohanim, and there was the avodah of the Levim. The avodah of the Kohanim, we learn kachim, bring karbonos and sprinkling the dam and korban menuchos and all many things that the Kohanim did. And then there's the avodah of the Levim. The avodah of the Levim is shira, but it's also referred to as gevurah. The midah of Kohanim is the chesed. Why? Because it's through all the karbonos that the Kohanim bring that shefa comes into this world. We're going to see later on, and when we talk about the parak about the Beis HaMikdash, comparing the Beis HaMikdash to Shabbos, that there's all the shefa on this planet came through the Beis HaMikdash. It was a shar hashamayim, like Yaakov Avinu called it. The shar hashamayim, Kodesh Baruch Hu sends shefa down to this world. The gateway, like we mentioned many times, is Shabbos. But there was another gateway, the Beis HaMikdash. Two gateways, like we spoke about a little bit about this on Tisha B'Av. There are two gateways, Shabbos and the Beis HaMikdash. So when we're talking about the Beis HaMikdash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sending shefa, where did that shefa come through? It came through the karbonos. Chazal tell us that through the karbonos there was tremendous shefa, specifically in the areas that the karbonos were brought. For example, grapes. Because there was a nischa yain, there was a wine libation, there was a tremendous bracha in the grapes. There was tremendous bracha in the fruits because of the bikurim. There was tremendous bracha in the animals that were brought. Those the goats and sheep and cows. Tremendous bracha because they were the kli that brought the shefa down here, and because of that they got more shefa than anything, and that applies till today. By the way, that there's shefa on the whatever thing a tzaddik uses. Whatever a tzaddik uses, he takes advantage of. He uses his things. There's shefa from that thing. We even see that even in inanimate objects, that when Yaakov Avinu was running to Lavan and he had to sleep at night and he gathered all the rocks around him. So all the rocks, Chazal tells us, were fighting. They all wanted to be under his head. So Hashem made an ace that they all became one rock. Because even an inanimate object can understand that there's tremendous shefa that comes through a tzaddik. And anything that a tzaddik is nene from can bring tremendous shefa to the world. We don't have the Beis Hamikdash anymore, but we do have tzaddikim, and therefore it's a tremendous milah to be mahanet tzaddikim, to be mahanet talmidei chachamim, to give them. And that's why Chazal tell us, I know we're going a little bit off topic, but it's all related to the Yesod over here. Chazal tell us that when it says that there's a mitzvah of a dovkabo, that you should cling to a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do you cling to a HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Asks, I think Rashi al Torah even asks this question. How do you cling to a HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He said, Eish Ochla. You can't cling to a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there are different answers, but the answer that was brought is that by clinging to his Talmidei Chachamim. Clinging to the tzaddikim, the Talmidei Chachamim, by doing business with them, by marrying your daughter off to them, by being involved, helping them whatever way, that's how you're becoming the mitzvah of being davak to Hashem. Because they're the closest things to Hashem. So there's tremendous shefa that comes. And now coming back to the Beis Hamikdash, there are these two shefas. There's these two avoidas, I should say. There are two avoidas. There's the avoida of the Kohanim, and there's the avoida of the Leviim. So the Kohanim is the chesed. The Leviim is the gevurah. Why is the Leviim the gevurah? So we have to understand a little bit more about the idea of chesed and the idea of gevurah in order to bring out this point. We said that chesed is just giving, and gevurah is holding in. But there's another aspect of gevurah. The other aspect of gevurah is not just holding in, but giving back. Meaning that it's not just good enough that we take the shefa that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends us, and we take it and we make it into something, but we actually have to give it back. And Rav Pinkus explains, what does that mean that we have to give it back? It means when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends something out, he sends the shefa out, in essence, it's going away from him. It's going away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem is sending out. So, for example, you shoot an arrow. The further the arrow goes, it's going away from the one who shot it. So, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though he's everywhere, but he's sending us something. So, the shefa is kiviyachol, leaving him and coming to us. Everything has to come back. Because if it doesn't have a closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it can't exist. It will lose. The further away it goes, the less ability for it to exist. Here, on the bottom of Daf Kuf Beis, I'm just going to read from the second line. Shekol ma sheyoytze me'eis HaKadosh Baruch Hu chayev lachzor elav yisbarach. Anything that goes out from Hashem has to come back. Shim yisharoichuk mimenu yisbarach ein lecha churban gadoy lemezeh sharichuk hu yisoid lekol ra. If it goes out, it goes away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If it goes away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then it will be destroyed ultimately. Because you have to have that closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How does it come back? How does that Hashem wants to give it out so that we will have. But how is it given back? How do we do that? So he brings here that there are two ways to do it, but both are included in this midah of gevurah. Gevurah is not just holding in for ourselves, but gevurah is as well giving it back or sending it back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do we do that? So he says here on the top line of Daf Kuf Gimel, Chazara zu bekama oifanim. There are different ways of sending it back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Aval be'ikra hi achaz mishtayim. There are two main ways. O al yedei hoido, or al yedei yisurin chas v'shalom. Either we can send it back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by acknowledging that it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, we got the shefa. Hashem sent us something. We got bracha. But unless we acknowledge that shefa is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then it's not connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu anymore. And then it will die. Or worse. So the more we acknowledge that it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that means we're sending it back. We're making it shaykh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu again. On the one hand, we benefit from it. On the other hand, we are acknowledging truly where it comes from. By doing that, we're showing this is a pikadon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a pikadon, something to watch and hold from, which we can be nene from. But we have to admit it's not ours. It's the balabais. Once we admit to it, we have that thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we have that closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why it can stay. It has staying power to be here. If a person doesn't thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, well, then it's going to be destroyed. And that's where you see the Yisurin is going to come. So here, I'm at the end of this first paragraph. If a person doesn't thank Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to destroy that matana, so he has no choice but to take the matana back. That's what means the difficulties that a person has in this world. Going parnaso or brius. When a person has issues related to his health or related to making a parnaso, it could be that somebody was very successful and all of a sudden they lost their success. What happened? Which is, by the way, one of the biggest skulas for parnasa is saying birchas hamazon with kavanah, because that's exactly what we're doing. You're saying hazanet ha'olam kulo b'tuvo b'chein b'chesed rachmim. Who's giving everything? Who is giving everything? I don't want to get from people. It's only from you. You have a holy wide hand to give. We're acknowledging that it's coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what Birchas Hamazon is. And that's what we're doing. The first part, that hoidah, we're saying all that shefa that you've given me is really shaykh to you. It's really yours. If a person doesn't do that, then ultimately Hashem will take it away. If Hashem takes it away, so then it will go back to him. But we won't be able to benefit from it anymore. We won't be able to benefit from that gevurah. And he says that's the idea in the Beis HaMikdash too. The Beis HaMikdash had these two avodas. It has the avodah of the kohen. The kohen was the middos of chesed, that he's bringing the shefa. Through his avodah, he's bringing the shefa into this world. And the avodah of the Leviim is the shira. The shira is the hoidah. We're thanking Hashem. We're saying to Hashem, thank you for all that shefa. And truly, you can look at the Gemara in Brachos, that's the highest point of the avodah. The highest point of the avodah is not about what we're getting. It's about thanking Hashem, which is why the highest point, the Gemara says in the beginning of Ketzah Mevarchim in Brachos, that the highest point of the avodah was the Nisuch HaYayin, when they did the wine libations. And it was at that point where they sang Shira. Because that's where we're showing really what we appreciate and what we acknowledge to be where the shefa is coming from. So it's really going to be shaykh back to Hashem. And here now it comes back to Yitzchak Avinu, because that is the midah of Yitzchak Avinu, the midah of gevurah, of Yiras Shamayim, of responding and giving everything back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and saying all the shefa that we got is really shaykh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the midah of Yitzchak Avinu. So therefore, we can say Yitzchak Yiranein, Yitzchak will sing. And here, the last paragraph before we get to Yaakov Avinu, Kishabos Shabbos v'shilitat HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitbaheret ba'olam b'yeser sa'eh. So on Shabbos comes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shlita, power over the whole world, is more seen, is more clear. Sharei misgale soida yichud she'ein oid milvado, like we mentioned many times, the whole yisoid of Shabbos is the acknowledgement that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only one in control of every single thing. So when that becomes more megalim and melishi efshal shum davar mimenu yisbarach, we realize nobody can run away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. No, you can't run away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's impossible. The question is, how do you decide to connect back to him? You want to connect back to him in the best way? Thank him. Because he only wants the best for you. He sends you chesed. He sends you shefa. So what does Hashem want? That you should connect back to him through that. And unfortunately, if a person doesn't do that, then they'll connect in a different way. They'll connect by Yisurin. But when a person on Shabbos comes to that hakara, understanding, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everything. There is nobody else. All the shefa that we're getting is only from him. So Moisif Yitzchak Tosefes Rina. Now Yitzchak is going to sing. He'll sing even more Mekor HaBracha Shemizgalat, because now on Shabbos we see that Yiras Shamayim. We see specifically something new, something special over here. Something special that it's only shaykh and that it's only shaykh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Through Shabbos, we see that everything is shaykh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that brings that extra simcha for Yitzchak Avinu to say, you see, that is the midah of gevurah. Everything is shaykh to you, and we're returning everything to you. Now, the inyan here of Yaakov Avinu, we'll try to just do to finish up this inyan. The inyan of Yaakov Avinu is very, very deep. Here he compares, when we say in Shemona Esrei, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. And then we say, Kel Hagadol, Hagibur, V'Hanoira. Gadol represents chesed. Gibur is gevurah. And Noira, which loosely translated is awesomeness or fear, right? Maybe fear is not the right word because fear is more yira, but Noira, I guess the word is awesome, but it's not, the translation is not really proper. It would be more something like that's above and beyond everything else. We use the word Noira in Yomim Noroim. That's why we call it Yomim Noroim. It is the high holidays, the awesome days, not the awful days, the awesome days. That's the concept that's used during the Yom Noraim. It's a much higher level. It's the midah of Noira. Here he brings an amazing thing, that Yaakov Avinu was shaykh to Elokus. He was shaykh to the level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, and he brings a pasuk. It's very difficult to understand, but it says, "Vayikra lo kel Elokei Yisrael." The pasuk, I believe in Parshas Vayishlach, I believe, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually called Yaakov Avinu Kel. Ayin Rashi there. What does that mean? It's even there. I think there are midrashim that say that when the malachim saw Yaakov, they thought he was a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Or maybe that was Adam. Excuse me, that was Adam. But they say Adam and Yaakov looked exactly the same. They thought the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what is the avodah? What does it mean that Yaakov Avinu is on this level? Well, he doesn't explain this point too much over here. Again, there's a lot of deep ideas over here. But the what we say in this line in the Tefillah, Yaakov uvonov yanuchu voi. Yaakov and his sons will rest on Shabbos. Right? Avram will be happy. Yitzchak will be singing. Yaakov and his sons, they'll be resting. What's pshat? What's going on over here? So he brings over here that the level of Yaakov Avinu was much higher than Avram and Yitzchak, and the example that he brings is with regards to their relationship with their wives. It says that Avram Avinu didn't even look at Sari Imenu, at least until a certain point, and Yitzchak also pashtus he brings is that also did not look at his wife from the time that he was brought as a korban. Also did not look at his wife. She calls them machmas oitzvas kedushosam. They were tremendously holy, and they were separated from the physical world. But Yaakov Avinu was much higher than that. Yaakov Avinu was in a place where he elevated the physical with him, and because he elevated the physical with him, so there was no chashash at all that the physical would bring him down. Avram and Yitzchak, there was a chashash, the physical would bring them down, so that they separated from the physical. Yaakov Avinu, there was no such chashash. It shows that Yaakov Avinu was on even a higher level. The truth of the matter is if you look in the Sefer Mesilas Yesharim, he talks about this level at the very, very end, the midah of kedusha. That the middos of Tara, for example, the midah of Tara is that a person has to separate from the physical things in this world in order to raise themselves up. But a higher level than that is a level of kedusha. The level of kedusha is not you have to separate from physical world to be able to be high on a higher level. You actually take the physical things with you, and it's use the physical things themselves to get to a higher level. And that was the level of Yaakov Avinu. So over here, in the last paragraph, before we get to the next section, he brings it home. What is it that makes Yaakov Avinu shaykh to menucha much more than Avraham and Yitzchak? So here, in the last, it's the second paragraph on Daf Kuf Dalid. Im kain, middos Avram v'Yitzchak ayu middos hachesed v'gevurah shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olam. Right? We already said Avraham and Yitzchak is chesed and gevurah. What is the midah of Yaakov Avinu? Middos of Yaakov is hamidah masha kodesh baruch hu lemala noira me'al ha'olam. Yaakov Avinu, the level of Yaakov Avinu is way above that. He is kilu shayach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, which is why, says Rav Pincus, the idea of menucha, which was said by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, can be said by Yaakov too. Shu inyan bittul teva olam legamri. Everything in this world becomes bottle. The physicalness of this world becomes bottle. All the physical things, like we mentioned way back in the first section, Chelek Aleph, they're all elevated. That's what Shabbos is. It elevates it because we're all shaykh to the chassan. We're all shaykh to the melech. So that's what it is. That's what Shabbos is. That's what a Kadosh Baruch Hu coming into the world does. So this is shaykh more to Yaakov Avinu, because Yaakov Avinu is on that level too. That's why the menucha of Yaakov Avinu is shaykh, because that is compared directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbos Nachalas Yaakov avicha. You will eat the nachla of Yaakov, which we see beli mitzarim nachala. There are no boundaries for Yaakov Avinu. That's what a person can be nene on Shabbos. So here, I understand today's shir was a little bit more esoteric. It was a little bit less, let's say, practical. But we have to understand that what we can take out lemaisa is that the Avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, were all shaykh to Shabbos, maybe even more than the average regular person, because of the middos that they put into themselves, because of how they pushed themselves and built themselves up, and they were shaykh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu even more. Because they were shaykh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu even more, so they're shaykh to Shabbos even more. And that's why we're mentioning them specifically, each one in their way, to show that each one of the Avos has a special connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore they have a special connection to Shabbos. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Thank you for joining Real Judaism, where we explore Torah's wisdom for real life. Created by J Foundations and produced by Eli Podcast Productions. Find more episodes at realjudaism.org and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.